Work study. I want to talk a minute about work study because I mentioned it earlier. When you get a financial aid statement, federal work study may be listed there. What does that mean? That means that the federal government has provided your school with a pot of money to give students who work as essentially their paycheck. There's a maximum amount that they will grant you. They may say you can make up to $1,500 in the school year. $1,500 in the school year. Now, in order to be able to use your work-study job, and it's not made available to everybody. The school determines who they're going to make work-study available to. The money that you make goes directly into your pocket. It's up to you whether or not you pay it to the school. You probably should, if you have a balance. But it's not like, oh, we have $1,500, now you must work X amount of days to pay off this no, that's not how it works. It's not indentured servitude. It's essentially money that you can make through the school. Now, schools have job postings that are just for, it's easier to get a job on campus when you have federal work study. I'll say that. I gave up. I was like, never mind. It's easier to get a job on campus. And each job offers a different amount of money. So as you can imagine, working closely with a faculty member makes the most money. Working in a cafeteria doesn't really make as much. But you still can't make more than $1,500 a year. So once you reach that, 775? Is that right? I used to be really good at math, now I'm crusty. But once you reach that $775 a semester, that's it. So if you're working with a faculty person, you're working less hours, obviously, to reach your max. But if you're working in a cafeteria, it's different. We found that students who work while they're in school tend to be better students and tend to do better once they graduate and entering into the world of work. They're able to manage their time better. And the magic number is 17. If a student works for 17 hours, when I read this research, I was like, who has 17 additional hours? And then I thought about all the time I chilled at the treehouse and all the time. Kids can find 17 hours. But if they work 17 hours a week, they're able to manage their time well. They're able to put forth the best effort when they have time to study. And the research shows that, working in college definitely works to their advantage in the long run. They have a dead week at the beginning of the school, and then finals week is supposed to be off. But that's not always every school's policy, but that's how it's supposed to work. Loans. Dun, 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 dun. So loans, again, as I said before, is not free money. It's money you have to pay back. These are the federal loan programs, meaning these are public loans. Public loans have the lowest interest rates because they're guaranteed by companies like ECFC. But they have the lowest interest rates. The direct subsidized loan means that while you're in college, the federal government will pay the interest. Let me not excite anyone. They will pay the interest while you're in college. Which is great. You only have to worry about the principal when you graduate. But after you graduate, it starts to incur interest. The direct unsubsidized loan means that interest is compounded as you go through school. Now, I had some classmates who were really industrious who paid off their interest while they were in school. That's a great idea. I didn't choose that path, but it was a great idea when you think about it in retrospect. The federal parent loan, so this is money that may show up on your aid statement. So I tell parents, talk to your career counselors, call me. If there's a school that you are serious about and you need help dissecting the aid statement, please call me. Some schools will have the Parent Plus loan listed like it is a grant. It will say Parent Plus, $10,000. And this kid will get super excited because at the bottom line, they see that the amount they need for school and the amount that they have in aid equals, so they get really excited. Well, the fact of the matter is the Parent Plus loan is based on credit. It's based on parents not having any negative credit. This is the only public loan that an undergrad student who is an independent student can use to pay for school. If a child decides that they want to apply for their own loan in excess to the sub and unsubsidized loans, they have to apply for a private loan, so through a bank, through an outside organization. So the Parent Plus loan is a tricky one. It's definitely a trick. Now, in graduate school, it just becomes plus loan, and you can apply for as much money as you want. That's why I had $65,000 in debt from Penn. But it's something to be mindful of. If you see plus, it is a loan. It is not free, and you have to apply for it on studentloan.gov in order to be approved for it. So the interest rates are here, 5.0. Actually, is changed to, it's increased by like I think it's 5.06 now. They just did a webinar a couple weeks ago about it. But they're still relatively low considering what is going to be going to a private organization. Parents have reached out to me to ask me, what do you think is best? Do you think I should co-sign on my child to get a private loan, or should I get the Parent Plus loan? I don't have an answer. It really is about what the parent feels most comfortable with. With some private loans, sorry, your hand, I got you. With some private loans, if a payment is made over a certain amount of time on time, they will remove the cosigner from the loan and leave it with just the child. That's not how Parent Plus loans work at all. Parent Plus loans is the parent's debt. It is not the student's debt. I'd also encourage folks to be mindful when taking out Parent Plus loans. I've had a heartbreaking conversation with a parent where we did the calculations and we decided he needed $12,000 in a Parent Plus loan. She said, well, I'm going to borrow $15,000. And I was like, no, he needs 12. No, that $3,000 is for me. And it was like, what do you say? But at the end of the day, it's her loan. I mean, I'm like, at least if you get a loan somewhere else, you can file for bankruptcy and it can be gone. This is student loan. It's not going anywhere. You're going to regret that $3,000. Sir?
Can you talk about the deferment, though? Like if you took out the plus loan, like there are some benefits of
absolutely.
financial.
Well, with public loan, with public and private loans, you can defer until you graduate.
Okay, even the private?
Yes, you can. They're actually that when you apply. Like, would you like to defer till graduation? Yes. But when you defer, interest increases. So it's up to you if you want to make payments after, like you could take out the loan and then have a payment due the next month, much like you would do a car note. Like you can't defer the car note till the end of the warranty. That's not how it works. But with most public and private loans, they will give you the option to defer, but be mindful that the interest will compound over time. Other ways to pay for school: savings, having a savings account. AmeriCorps, doing a city year, gap year, where AmeriCorps offers great education awards towards the cost of tuition. I've had students in Philadelphia do city year for a year and then had a $12,000 education award. And it was awesome because these kids were near homeless. Yes?
Is there a credit score, minimum credit score for parents?
I don't know that to be exact. All I know that they say for a fact is it has to be no negative credit history. So you could have a low credit score, but it could be based on the fact that you don't have any credit at all. So it's just based on that. And I've seen parents get approved for who I definitely knew they weren't going to be approved. And I was like, what? Oh, okay, don't need a plan B. So they just say no negative credit. And keep in mind, sometimes folks are approved first year and not approved second year. Hold on, one question in the back first, then I got you. Yes?
Sorry, I'm just on the loans. Quick question about the loans. Is yearly or is one for the complete 4 years or 5 years school?
Oh, annually, yes.
Yearly. So I apply 15 or 1,200 or 800 1 year, and next year I can apply again for another one?
Yep, every year.
So everybody became, if you take one base
Oh, yeah.
time,
15,000 times, and that doesn't include the cost of tuition that increases every July. Yeah, the Board of Governors, Board of Directors, Board of Visitors, regardless of the governing body for the school, makes decisions about the increase in tuition in July. So unfortunately, kids may get an A statement, not the freshmen so much so, but kids who are returning may get an A statement, and that will change over the summer based on the increase in tuition. But yes, it is every year. There are some folks who try to get one for just a semester, but Student loan offices can't get themselves together. They still want to split it in half, and you're just like, that's not what I asked. It's difficult. Sorry.
So that's okay. I just want to know that if you do AmeriCorps, say for a year with a gap year, does that, if you had other scholarships, do you end up losing them?
I've had students been successful, to be successful in asking them, like if it's an outside, like community-based organization, asking them to hold off because you have this other plan that you want to do for a year, and they've been successful in getting that. The school, though, may not, if it's institutional money, they may not be as generous. But who's to say that they won't qualify for that money another year?
So, and one other question I have. which
Sure.
I asked earlier. So if you go to a school out of state,
Mm-hmm.
do you find that, say, any out of state, that the university will give less awards than they would to in-state?
It's not that they would give less awards. The cost of tuition is more expensive if you go to a public school out of state. So you're going to get the same Pell Grant, unsubsidized loans if we're applying through the federal, once you do your FAFSA. But your bottom line is going to be higher because it's an out-of-state public school. Private school, it doesn't matter. The tuition is the same for everybody because it's private. Public schools receive support from the government, the state government. So that's why they're public. They receive a lot of money to offset their budget. Private schools receive little to no public money. So they depend on donors and tuition from kind folks like you to essentially keep their doors open.
So they have the in-state and the out-of-state, it doesn't matter.
No, same if it's a private school. Penn State is what, so funny that I have a background in the state of Pennsylvania. Penn State is considered a state-assisted university. Pennsylvania is weird. They have public schools, they have state-assisted schools, and they have private schools. The state-assisted schools are Penn State, Temple, and University of Pittsburgh. They receive some money. They receive more than the private schools from the state. But they have a little bit more autonomy with their money because they also have a huge donor base. Yeah, I'm trying to get UVA to parlay that, but they're not really hearing it right now. Yeah, so military service, I had one student in Philadelphia who was homeless, went from couch to couch, who went to a private school because they gave him, a private college because they gave him more financial aid, but he went under the guise of being a nursing major, knowing good and well he wanted to be a politician. He wanted to go into public service, wanted to be a politics major. So after a year at Gwinnett Mercy, he's like, I can't do this anymore, Miss Tamika. Like, I have to find somewhere else. And I can't afford it. My family can't afford it. They don't even want me to go to school. They want me to get a job at McDonald's. So because I'm a military brat, I said, have you considered it? At least ROTC or the reserves. He looked into it, decided that the GI Bill was worth it for him. So he went into the National Guard Reserves. He was gone for 8 months. I missed him dearly. He did AIT in Fort Lee, so of course my mom had him over for dinner every so often. But now he is finishing up at Westchester. This GI Bill covered quite a bit of his tuition. He was the captain of the track team and an RA. He was super ambitious though, super duper ambitious. But he realized what were his other options. So that worked out in his favor. The reserves, National Guard, and also parents' GI benefits. Each college campus has a Veterans Affairs person on staff. I was lucky that somebody whispered that into my ear at orientation. My dad was career military, and he had no idea. He was just like, what? What is that? So, I got you 1 second. So because I was a GI, and because my dad had a certain percentage of disability, I qualified to get a monthly, payment from Armed Forces. Yes?
Let's say you qualify for the ROTC scholarship. Do you have to serve in the military forces, or do you not have to?
You do. That's where they give you the money. Now, some students do ROTC, do the 2 years, and then call it a day. I have friends from UVA who did the Navy ROTC who said that they were only going to do a little bit of time. They went in as nursing majors, and they're still there. And that was 2 years ago, because obviously how young and spry I am. But yes, if you take that money, you have to go into active service.
Okay, so if you have the GI Bill
I got you, sir.
and it's 100%, what happens with all the scholarships and everything?
That's separate.
So
Because the GI, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the Veterans Affairs money. The GI, it still would be considered, again, it depends on the school, it still would be considered a part of aid.
Okay.
It won't be on your initial like financial aid statement because they want the documentation from the back end. So that may come to the child as a refund. The school may decrease the amount of aid, but in most schools they don't. Unfortunately, we're seeing that a lot among HBCUs though.
Okay.
They're decreasing the amount of student aid if students get outside scholarships to come in. Direct dependents. Dependent, so there's parents, children, stepchildren.
To piggyback on this question about the GI Bill, should the student not declare, if they plan on using the parent's GI Bill, should they not declare that up front and wait and see what they get in scholarships and financial aid, and then be like, oh yeah, by the way, we use it?
We're being video recorded. I was going to give you a really honest answer to that. But you can gather what I'm thinking. Like, I mean, you just have to find your angle sometimes. I mean, there are kids who say, I'm not going to tell them I got this scholarship coming. I'm just going to let it come mid-year. And I go, all right, you take your chances. At one school, it may work out incredibly well. The next school, they may decrease your spring aid based on the scholarship that came midway through the fall semester. It's the luck of the draw. Like, you really don't know. I think UVA just didn't care that much because it was just too many of us. So a lot of stuff kind of slipped through the crack in terms of financial aid. Like I laughed because I felt like I did not qualify to receive a lot of financial aid. But they were like, do you know how many children your mother has? And I'm like, I mean, they're like, no, seriously, like that's why you get aid.
I just had one more question.
Sure.
On the line. True or false? Every college determines in-state and out-of-state differently? Is that true or false?
False.
That is false.
False.
There is a set
It is
standard.
one application that's used for all the schools that determines, what is it called?
You're talking about Virginia or you're talking about all 50 states?
No, well, each state has their own form,
Okay.
but it determines what state you have residency. That's what's called, the residency form.
Okay.
And that's it. And essentially all you have to do is prove you've lived there the past 18 months.
Okay. Every year though, you have to prove that.
No, just 1 year.
Just first year? Okay.
Yeah, I was surprised in Pennsylvania, because I went to Penn, it was a private school, so it didn't matter what state I had residency. But because I was there for a year, I qualified for in-state tuition when I was working on my PhD at Temple. But it was crazy because I just knew they were going to charge me out-of-state tuition, and they were like in-state. I'm like, I'm not questioning this. All right.
So once they qualify.
State tuition with Penn State after being
At Temple, I was there for a year. At Penn. Regardless of the fact that I was a student, but I was there for a year. I was a resident there for a year. So when I applied at Temple, they qualified me for in-state tuition.
New York,
Yeah. I mean, and I don't think it matters. I have friends who lived on campus and still had the same type of situation.
I always thought it was where you're paying the taxes though. Is where
I had no job. I paid no taxes. I mean, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. I mean, they ask you a series of questions. So it's one form that literally asks you like 10 questions. And you answer them, and so on, and then they determine whether or not you're a resident or not. I had a kid in Philadelphia, and if any of you are familiar with Temple University, it looks just like VCU. Like different cities, same school. Well, I brought them on a college tour, came to visit VCU. He fell in love with VCU. And I'm like, but you hate Temple. I don't get it. Well, he decided that I'm going to go to J. Sargent Reynolds for a year because it's cheaper than going to VCU as an out-of-state student. So I'm going to go to J. Sarge for a year, which is a community college, for a year, and then I qualify for in-state tuition at VCU. Genius move. Types of financial aid applications. Well, we're going to talk about two, the FAFSA and then CSS profile. I don't want to run through this, but the FAFSA is very simple. It's so user-friendly. So user-friendly. Now, it wasn't always that way. And the portal opens today. So if you are starting school next fall, you and your parents need to complete a FAFSA application now. Well, the A is application, so it's kind of redundant. You need to complete a FAFSA now. If you need to go to school next summer because you're doing a summer bridge program, because you're an athlete who's starting classes early, you need to do last year's FAFSA. So make sure that the year that you're completing is 18-19. Just keep that in mind. If you have a traditional student that's starting in the fall, you just need to do the new FAFSA. If you need to start in the summer, though, for whatever reason, there are summer bridge programs for kids who may not have the strongest grades, SAT scores. They let you in over the summer so you can get acclimated to college, take a couple classes. You need last year's, essentially last year's FAFSA.
But that's like in the summer of 2020, you will do 1920, right?
Yes,
And in the
you got it. 1920, and then if you're going next fall, then you'll do 2020. Yep. 2021 is launched today. Yes. Yes.
But you won't know that, you have to do that summer program until pretty late in the game. So it's likely you have to go back and do a previous year FAFSA.
No, you do. You will still have to do it. So let's say you apply to the school, you get an A statement in the in the spring, and then they say, we want you to attend a summer bridge program. Then you have to go back in and do the previous year's FAFSA. So you wouldn't know now. I mean, I've had some ambitious parents who goes, my kid is going to play football at blah, 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 blah school, so then they do it now. But, I mean, it's no love lost one way or the other.
If you go back a couple slides, you can add in your slides what's called the Yellow Ribbon Program.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Right. It's for veterans and military. A lot of schools have the Yellow Ribbon Program where they get money, like most colleges, $5,000 a year, just because your parents were veterans.
I missed out on that.
You know, so
The Yellow Ribbon Program, he says, provides $5,000 for students annually if your parents were veterans.
Yeah, there's a certain number per each school that they
Mm.
participate in the program. So maybe they have 10 that they can give out.
Yeah.
my Madison University has 3 of them, but George Mason University is called Unlimited, and it's $5,000 a year. So you
Tap into that. Free money. Free money. So FAFSA became open today. In order to sign the FAFSA, you need an FSA ID. Sir, yes.
If there are 2 students going at the same time, I have to apply twice. How to apply?
No. So are they starting school this year at the same time, or was one already in school and then one's joining?
One is in already and is going 1 year to the next time.
There's a way that you can link the applications together so you're not having to do the same thing twice. Like if they're both starting at the same time, then it's a little bit complicated. But if one is already there, you can link the applications, yes.
I'm wondering, I'm just going back to the work study. Is it possible to do an internship for the work study?
Probably not, but it's up to the school to make that determination. They will give you a list of jobs that qualify as a work study. Yeah, it's very cut and dry. FSA ID, and this is the way that you electronically sign the FAFSA. You go on this website, you include your government name, your social security number, and your email address. You then get an FSA ID. The student needs to do it, and one of the parents who's completing the application needs to do it. If you are not a U.S. citizen, you cannot apply for an FSA ID. So then you wonder, how do I sign a FAFSA? You have to do the whole application and print out the last page, sign it, and mail it in snail mail. To complete the FAFSA, if you're not a U.S. resident, you just put all zeros in the Social Security spot because it's not going to let you move forward in the application without it. Yes? In terms of admissions?
And admission and no, financial aid.
Financial aid, yes. Non-citizens cannot apply for federal student aid. That's why I tell a lot of them to tap in with the school itself in order to see if they have funding sources for non-citizens. But for admissions, no.
My second question is, I am a citizen, I citizen, and naturally my son is also a citizen, but he doesn't have a certificate of citizenship.
They just ask, are you a U.S. citizen? I've never had anyone to have to prove it. Because if you're a citizen, you have a social security number. And so that's what you have to put on the application.
No, because he was nationalized automatically because of me.
But he will still get a social security number.
Yes, he has.
Right, that's all he needs.
But he has a green card still. We have, no, the procedure is that when you become a citizen, and if you have a minor son, he becomes right?
Right.
That is what happened with my son. But the procedure is that you must apply for certificate of citizenship, which takes a long time.
Which takes a little bit long. I think you would have to deal with it on a case-by-case basis with the schools that he's interested in. I'm not as up on the details of that. But if he have a social security number, then he can apply for the FAFSA, he can apply for the school as a U.S. citizen, so on and so forth. All he needs is a social security number. The FAFSA is the application. The FAFSA is the application that you're going to need to apply for student aid, and also, the FSA ID is the code you're going to use to sign for your FAFSA application, as well as any student loans in the future. That's why parents need one. That's why kids need one. This ID keeps up with you forever and ever and ever and ever. Amen. So you don't need to change it. What I used to do is email it to myself. Well, back in the day when they had a pen, I used to email it to myself so that I can keep up with it. Yes.
For twins, can I use my same FAFSA, FSA?
Yeah.
For both?
It's attached to the person. So it's not necessarily attached to the application. It's attached to the person. Oh, I thought I heard. Yes.
Who signs the FAFSA? Is it Matt?
We're going to talk about it. Both of them, actually. In order to provide your financial information on the FAFSA, when the portal again opens today, you will use the IRS data retrieval tool. They take your tax information from 2 years ago. It's called prior year. Some folks are still doing their 2018 taxes, so they can't use this year. They take your 2017 income tax return information and they populate it on the FAFSA. You want to use this tool. If you don't, chances are you're going to be chosen for verification, and then that means they want to see all your W-2s, bank statements, all of that. It's just easier to just do this.
Do you need a separate IRS login to do that?
They're going to ask you for the information like your refund amount, your social security number, your filing status. So whether you're single, head of house, all of that. But yes, I encourage folks, please use this if you're able to, because it makes life so much easier.
This is a different website than that?
No. I'm just showing you what it looks like. When you go to FAFSA.gov, and you go to FAFSA.gov because the first F in FAFSA is what? Free. Please do not go to FAFSA.net, FAFSA.com, FAFSA.info. Many of these sites will charge you money to not file your FAFSA. I had a nephew who came to me one day and was like, I'm out of $75. They didn't even file. I'm sorry, who does this work for a living? And you just did it on your own. So you go to this free application, it links your IRS information, so your income is automatically populated. In some cases, if you're chosen for verification, even though you may have used the IRS data retrieval tool, you may still have to get a copy of your IRS transcript. Again, very easy to get. Back in the day, we used to have to call and get them to mail it to us. Now you can go on this website, get your tax record, they'll mail it to you. They haven't gotten progressive enough to email it to us yet, but they'll mail it to you so you can provide it to the school. The sections of the FAFSA are very easy. Student demographic information, their plans, do they want to do a 4-year degree, so on and so forth. The colleges that they're interested in. Make sure when they list the colleges, it's ranked in the order of importance to them. If students just willy-nilly go and just write 10 names down, it could be tragic. Why? Schools receive this list, and they assume where they are on the list is a reflection of how serious students are going to consider them. Guess. I promise you, guess. Because what happens if you rate a school in your top 3, they're going to be serious in how they create your financial aid statement. If you rank them number 7, 8, or 9, you're going to get the bare bones from the state and the federal government. Now, if that changes, if your top 3 changes, go in and change it. But they will, and I've seen kids change. They go from number 1 to number 10, and they have the bare bones in 8. Yes?
How many colleges can you put up on?
10. You can list 10. I'm sorry?
You said you can go and change it, the priority, but not after you submit.
No, after you submit, you can file an amendment.
And also you know also that the civic FSA ID has to be a citizen. Is it both for the parent and the student?
Yes.
So if the parent is not a citizen, it should be mailed?
Yes. If the parent is not a citizen, they put all zeros in for the Social Security number, and at the last page, there's the option to print out the signature page. You print it out, sign it, and mail it to the Department of Ed, to Student Financial Aid. But all of this is, intuitive. This is important. This is important. It's important to know who must complete the FAFSA with the student. The simplest situation is if a child is raised in a two-parent household with their mother and father. Both of them file. Both of them are included in the FAFSA. If the child is raised by a single parent and the other parent is not living in the house with them, it's just a single parent, that parent goes on the FAFSA. If the parent remarries and there is a stepfather, a stepmother, the mother and the stepfather go on the FAFSA. I just want to be clear. Because folks have flipped over chairs and tables. It's a requirement, yes. The IRS information that you submit. It doesn't matter if you file separate. It doesn't matter if you file jointly in terms of taxes. If the child is applying for college and they live in the house with a parent and a step-parent, both of those parents have to go on the FAFSA.
So do that.
Only one of those parents need to sign it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Only one parent needs to get ID, right? Only one.
Yes. Only one parent needs to sign the application. But both parents, please, when I tell you, you don't want to go through the hell of only including one of these parents. They know everything. I've had parents try to scheme, and then they get that nice letter when they're chosen for verification, and they tell you why. Like, we saw that you were married, and you guys have the same address. Why wasn't this other parent included? Yes?
If you're married and separated for 11 years,
Still married. Still married. Both folks have to be included. Now, you can make a case to the student aid department at the school about he does not live in our home, and they may make a separate consideration for that. But the rules given to us by Student Financial Aid is that if there are two parents in that household, whether it be two natural or adoptive parents, then they have to both be included. If it's a step parent, they have to be included. A part of me is like, let me move through this and then I'll just get the questions, because I don't want to hold up other people, and Mr. Hill's already like, So just make sure you come and holler at me at the end with your questions, okay? So yeah, I talked about what the financial parent is. If you have questions about that, call me. These are not financial parents. A widowed step-parent. So let's say mom and stepdad are together with the child. Mom dies. Stepdad is not the financial parent. In that case, they would tell the child to find their father. I'm not even joking. They would tell them to find the father. Grandparents are not financial parents. They are not the natural or adopted parent of the child. Foster parents, they are not the natural or adopted parent of the child. Legal guardians, nope, it does not matter who has custody. They have to be parents, whether naturally or adopted. Older brothers and sisters, nope. Aunts and uncles, cousins, you living on the couch, no. They're not financial parents. So what happens? Well, first and foremost, they would tell you to find your parents. They really would encourage you to find your parents. If that doesn't happen, you can qualify for, do I have a slide? No, you can qualify for an override, but you have to prove that you are worthy of an override. If you are a ward of the state, you can provide document from the court. If you are homeless, you need 3 letters from folks to attest that you're homeless. So there are different avenues for different folks. But first and foremost, they say find your mama and your daddy, because that's easy. Hold on, I told them I was going to take questions at the end because I want to be able to get through. Common FAFSA rejections. Confusing the student and the parent information. When you're putting in information, you put in their social security number for yours, their income for yours, all of that. Please make sure, it's very streamlined, but make sure you're presenting the information accurately. Entering information that doesn't match the Social Security database. Your name is Kathy, but you go by Debbie. So you put in Debbie. It's not going to work. It's going to be rejected immediately. They need your government name. The amount of federal income tax. If there's something fishy, this is the way that it's going to be a red flag for them. So you don't want to be chosen for verification and to then have to prove this, because then it goes back into the IRS. Then we got an audit that we didn't even want. Not signing the FAFSA. So we get it that folks you can choose not to get an FSA ID and still sign the paper, but things get lost in the mail. Some folks don't even want to do it that way. But you want to make sure the application is signed. Another application to give attention to, CSS profiles. Now, there was a time where about 500 or so schools, it was actually more than close to 600 schools use a CSS profile. This is an application in addition to the FAFSA that you need to complete for certain schools. Now that number has decreased because schools are starting to realize this is unnecessary. Like, we don't need this additional application. It's through the College Board, but it asks for additional information. One, it costs. So in addition to completing the FAFSA, you can submit your first CSS profile for $25, and the additional one after that is $16. You can qualify for waivers, just like you can for test scores and application fees. But for this one, the non-custodial parents' information is needed too. So single mom, if your dad is somewhere, they still need his information. And also additional income and asset information. They want to see copies of bank statements, so on and so forth. My mama said don't apply to them schools. Additional financial aid paperwork. Again, I spoke about verification. Generally, you want to provide the right information on your financial aid statement, your FAFSA, so you don't have to be chosen for verification. But 30% of students are chosen anyway. So you just have to essentially provide documentation for the information that you present on the FAFSA. Loan interest counseling, you do that online before the semester begins so that you understand that you will have to pay that loan money back. You do exit counseling at the end as well. And then promissory notes, you only have to sign it once, but essentially it's good for 10 years. So at any point you receive federal loans, the promissory note will count for 10 years. Timelines. Well, September is over. Well, let's hope that you have created your FSA ID by now. Verify the name that's on your Social Security card and use that. Even if you've changed the spelling, use the one that's on the card, please. It's just easier for you. Have a family financial aid talk. Things that you should be talking about. How much are you willing to pay? How much are you willing to help contribute for your child's education? Have that conversation with the kid. I've had a parent to say, look, this is your education. But I respected that because it was very upfront to the child. Now you know where you stand. I had another kid that said, my mom got a trust fund. The mom was like, I got a what? No. So having those honest conversations right now, how much are you willing to pay towards tuition from earnings? How much can the students contribute from their little part-time job? How much are they saving? How much do they think they're going to get from scholarships? These are the frank conversations that should be happening now, should be happening before now. One big question, parents, how much are you willing to borrow? Where are you willing to draw the line? If you're not willing to draw a line at all, say that. But you can say, I'm only borrowing $10,000. So you got to figure it out. Are you willing to increase savings or decrease spending to make a monthly payment to the school? That's a conversation you guys need to have. Complete the FAFSA starting today using prior year income, and also experiment with the net price calculator that I told you about at the beginning. You go to the school's website and play around with it. Narrow your schools. Well, you need to do this for the FAFSA. Narrow your schools to 10 schools. If any schools require a CSS profile, make sure you get that done and apply for the fee waiver if necessary. Take time to perfect any essays, but always respond to communications from the school's financial aid officer. I had a parent who had a brilliant idea. She started a separate email account, and that was the email address that they use on all the applications for scholarships and schools. Why? Because the child didn't want to give up the password to theirs. And at least if it's this one, me and your dad have access to the account, and we can keep up with deadlines too. We can keep up with information coming from the school too. I thought that was a genius idea because kids are just, who knows. December, use your winter break to wrap up applications. I tell kids don't take any college applications into the new year. Have it, I don't care when it's due. None in the new year, because then your gear should shift to be applying to scholarships. So researching scholarships, applying for scholarships, and help when you need it. The school counselors here, you have a wealth of resources with school counselors here. The college and career centers, My Big Future by the College Board, or you can always get in touch with me.